Hello everyone, and welcome to the Lizzie Bennet Diaries phenomenon, a retrospective. This will be a video diving into the 2012-2013 web series, The Lizzie Bennet Diaries. This video is part of the 2021 virtual Jane Con running from May 1st to May 2nd, 2021. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Brianna Michelle Meyer. I am a born and bred Wisconsinite, but I call South Korea home as of right now. I work as an English teacher over here. I have been a fan of period dramas since I was 6 years old, and when I was introduced to the 1994 version of Little Women. Since then, I have loved period dramas. I even spent a semester abroad in London. Yes, I did visit Bath. I grew up reading Austen. It is an honor to be part of Virtual Jane Con this year. I was looking on YouTube, and to be honest, I was surprised there aren't any videos discussing the impact of the Lizzie Bennet Diaries. The impact the Lizzie Bennet Diaries had on here. It's actually a very big one. I discovered the series the week it came out when Hank Green made a Vlog Brothers video about it. I decided to check it out because I'm a period drama trash fan, and who can say no to Mr. Darcy? I will display a slide in case anything is triggering before I discuss it. I also want you all to know that this is from my perspective, so all thoughts and views are my own. There will be spoilers as the show was released 9 years ago. I will also be posting timestamps once the video is up for certain chapters and contents in the chapters if you're interested in that. I also did not have time to rewatch the series, so all this is coming from memory. I was able to watch a video of Lizzie and Darcy, and I will link that in the description box for others to view. Now, let's go over the chapters for today's talk. Chapter 1, what is the Lizzie Bennet Diaries? Chapter 2, the characters. Chapter 3, major plot points. Chapter 4, impact. And Chapter 5, works inspired by the Lizzie Bennet Diaries. So let's dive in, shall we? What is the Lizzie Bennet Diaries? The Lizzie Bennet Diaries is a transmedia retelling of Pride and Prejudice. Transmedia is telling a story over various platforms. The Lizzie Bennet Diaries, or LBD, which I'll be using from now on, was told using a vlog format, Twitter accounts, and the official website. It was produced by Bernie Sue and Hank Green under Pemb Digital. More about that later. The setting is moved to California, and Lizzie is a grad student in communications. Darcy works in the Bay Area, working at Pemb Digital. There's inverse PemDig and our world PemDig. I'll discuss this more when we discuss characters. Speaking of which, let's learn about the characters. Since this is a modern-day adaptation of a well-known work, I won't be diving in deeply with their full character background. I will be telling you how they modernized instead. All screen caps were taken from kissthemgoodbye.net, just so you all are aware. First up, we have the Bennet family and friends. Elizabeth Lizzie Bennet is the main character. She is the narrator for most of the vlogs and very quick to judge. She is played by Ashley Clemens. Jane Bennet is Lizzie's older sister. She works as a merchandise coordinator in the fashion world and is very sweet and polite. She's played by Laura Spencer. Lydia Bennet is the youngest sister. Lizzie doesn't look at Lydia nicely. She views her as immature. Lydia grows as the series progresses. She's played by Mary Kate Wiles. Mary Bennet is their cousin, and she is played by Brianna Cuoco. Kitty Bennet is Lydia Bennet's cat and played by Mary Kate Wiles' real-life cat, Rosie. Mr. and Mrs. Bennet are never seen, but are acted out by Lizzie, Charlotte, and Lydia. Charlotte Lou is Lizzie's best friend. She ends up taking a job at Collins & Collins. She's played by Julia Cho. And here are the four main girls. Aren't they adorable? Ricky Collins is a former classmate of Lizzie and Charlotte. He prefers to be called Mr. Collins and works at Collins & Collins. He's played by Maxwell Glick. Next, let's look at the Darcy family and friends. William Darcy or Darcy, is the heir to Inverse Pemberley Digital. He is standoffish, according to Lizzie. He's played by Daniel Vincent Gord. So he is in part of the Inverse Pemberley Digital, not our world Pemberley Digital. So that's how there are two Pemberley Digitals. Georgiana Gigi Darcy is Darcy's younger sister. She is a graphic designer at Pemberley Digital and played by Allison Page. Bingley is Darcy's best friend. He is a wealthy med student and played by Christopher Sean. Caroline Lee is Bane's younger sister. She is interested in Darcy. She's played by Jessica Jade Andres. Fitzwilliams is Darcy's friend and colleague. He's played by Craig Frank. And then we have him. George Wickham is a university swim coach. The only term I can use to describe him is disgusting. His characterization is so slimy. He's played by Russ Anderhold. Fun fact, the cast of LBD were invited as guests to LeakyCon Chicago in 2012, and I was there. It was only the core girls there and Bernie, besides Hank, but at the panel they showed a video that revealed Wes as Wickham, and the entire room went from a nanosecond of quiet to pure pandemonium. Next, let's move on and talk about the major plot points. The Bennet family in LBD is much different from the family in the novel. There are only 3 sisters instead of the 5. Mary becomes a cousin, and Kitty rightfully becomes a kitty. Lydia also creates her own vlogs. So instead of seeing the story in just Lizzie's perspective, we also get to see the story unfold through Lydia's eyes. Also, the Bennet parents are never seen on screen. Now, we have to talk about diversity. It is important to note that this series came out in 2012. That was 9 years ago. Talking about diversity back then wasn't as frequent as we do now. This is the pre-Bridgerton era. This is pre-Anne with an E. This happened during the Downton Abbey era and the height of when Game of Thrones was actually good to put into perspective. I also at this time have to recognize my own privilege. I am a white cisgender woman, and I come from a place of privilege because of my skin color. This being said, I will never experience what BIPOC and AAPI go through. I know that this is a topic that has been discussed at length over the past 2 years within the period drama community, and I know there are a few videos from this year's con that discuss this very thing. I encourage you to go and check out those videos. I would also like to thank Bianca for always pointing out areas where this is not being discussed or pushed aside and even ignored. This does not go unnoticed at all. That being said, let's officially dive into the topic of diversity. The cast is diverse to a point. The trope used is called race lift. Charlotte Lucas becomes Charlotte Liu. Mr. Bingley becomes Bing Lee. Both of these characters are of Asian descent. However, it is important to note with period dramas that it is hard for BIPOC to see themselves as the main lead. Instead, they are usually secondary characters. We are seeing this in period dramas now changing, but back in 2012, it was still very common for BIPOC to be secondary characters. The 2 main leads for the series are white, and their best friends aren't. Another character notes is Fitz. I did not include a picture of him because he's literally in like 2 episodes, maybe 3. He's like blink and you miss it, like the usual adaptation of Pride and Prejudice. Fitz is never really mentioned. Even though he hasn't seen much, he is BIPOC and also gay. However, you don't see that on screen. It's mentioned on Twitter. So looking back at it now, there was some progress made with this series, but in 2021, it does not hold up. Now, we have to discuss Lydia and Wickham. Content warning for this next part. I'll be discussing a sex tape, so if that is triggering for you, please skip ahead. The characterization of Wickham in LBD is very disturbing to me, but also there are men like this in the real world. Lydia and Wickham began to date around New Year's in the series. Lydia and Lizzie had a huge fight around this time. They stopped talking. Lydia went to Las Vegas, and that is where she met Wickham, and they began to date. Wickham ultimately ends up taking advantage of her by using her YouTube status as clout. It gets to a point where Wickham opens a website to get money in order to share a sex tape. Lizzie finds out about this through Jane and decides to go home immediately. Darcy buys the website and the video disappears. Now, it's important to note that Lizzie had no idea that this was going on. She was in the Bay Area at Pemb Digital and completely unaware about Lydia and Wickham. She was busy focusing on herself. Because Lizzie knew the truth about Wickham from before, which Darcy told her, and in telling one, she felt guilty. She ultimately returns home and focuses on her family. The one thing that I liked about this arc with Lydia was that they didn't force her to stay with Wickham. Instead, they broke up. Good. And Lydia became closer to Jane and Lizzie. I love that. I really do. In the end, it really becomes all about the Bennet sisters and their bond. Also, I do have to say this. Wickham is so unlikable in this series. Wes did a fantastic job at portraying him. Now, moving on to something lighter. The moment you've all been waiting for. Darcy Day. So, first of all, what was Darcy Day? Darcy Day was the reveal of William Darcy on camera. Up until then, Darcy was only portrayed on the vlogs in the costume theater segments. And he first appeared neck down in episode 59 and then in episode 60. Lizzie was at Collins and Collins at this time. Darcy confesses that he is in love with her. Lizzie accidentally reveals she has vlogs. And that the screen cap is that exact moment. It was great. The episode aired on November 2nd, 2012, and fandom hyped it up. This was the biggest reveal of all time. There was even a hashtag Darcy Day used. I was studying in London at this time, and even I was waiting for the episode to come out at nighttime for me. Hank Green tweeted this about Darcy Day. It is officially Darcy Day where I live. I did not think I would be this nervous, but I am. Hashtag Darcy Day. When I said Darcy Day was big, I mean big. It was the event of the year. The Pods leaving Doctor Who, that was nothing compared to Darcy Day. That one character dying in Downton, Darcy Day topped it. Dizzy shippers went into a tizzy. It was Chef's Kiss before Chef's Kiss was a thing. It was hyped up perfection. The cast did such a good job with this reveal. Mr. Darcy is probably the #1 man on literary crush lists, and LBD knocked it out of the park. The Duke from Bridgerton is rising up there, but Darcy will always be the dream man. Overall, the series did a good job adapting to a modern audience. It was better to witness in real time because of the suspense. Watching it back, it doesn't feel the same as the first time. The show had a lot of ideas that were ahead of its time and helped create a new style of storytelling. It also got people interested in reading classic books. This was a little show that could. Next, let's look at the impact of LBD. There's a DVD Kickstarter that I helped back, which reached its goal on the first day. It won a Creative Arts Emmy. There were books based in the series. Members of the cast ended up on popular television shows such as Days of Our Lives and The Big Bang Theory. Some of the casts are active on YouTube in the LA theater scene and even have Patreons. It also kicked off a series update boom of classic books into a modern setting. Let's look at the works inspired by the LBD now. I'll put a link to each of these series in the description box below. First, we have a few inverse series. The first one was already mentioned, the Lydia Bennet Diaries. This let us see Lydia through her own eyes and not Lizzie's. There's also Maria of the Lou, a short series featuring Marie Lou, Charlotte's sister, who had an internship at Collins and Collins. It was like 2 or 3 episodes, so you can skip it if you want. It's cute, but it's literally a blink and you'll miss it. There was also an adaptation of Sanditon called Welcome to Sanditon. In this, Gigi is the main character and is in town of Sanditon testing out the new Domino app for Pemb Digital. Then there's Emma Approved. This was a modern adaptation of Emma, who is using the Domino app to record her own documentary of her life. I believe she's using Domino, but Domino is mentioned. In this, she is a lifestyle coach and a matchmaker. She's also half Asian, which is rather important. Pemb also made a modern-day adaptation of Frankenstein called Frankenstein MD with PBS. Let's now look at other works. These are all works that I have personally watched. There are a lot of them out there, but these are the well-known ones. Most of them were funded by fans, and only a few had funding from companies. From New Zealand came Nothing Much to Do, a modern vlog adaptation of Much Ado About Nothing. It was so popular that a sequel series called Lovely Little Losers came out, loosely based off of Love's Labor's Lost. The Candle Wasters put this together and have grown as artists. I personally love Nothing Much to Do. There's queer representation in both series. As the Candle Wasters started to put out series, they also added content warnings for each episode, especially for the adaptation of Midsummer Night's Dream, which is called Bright Summer Night. Next in Canada, we have Carmilla, based off of the book by Sheridan Le Fanu. This series has such good representation. It has 3 seasons, a season 0, and also a final movie. If you're looking for sapphic vampires and non-binary representation, this is the web series for you. I am due for a rewatch so I can finish the series. Fans are also known as cream puffs. That's a little bit of an important thing to know. Green Gables Fables is one of my favorites. It is a modern-day adaptation of Anne of Green Gables that ran for 2 seasons. I was one of the kindred spirits, or Kickstarter backers, for season 2. The actors were all college age when they filmed it and when the story was set, so it was perfect. It's very slice of life and makes you feel things. The New Adventures of Peter Wendy is a modern-day adaptation of Peter Pan that is gut-wrenchingly beautiful. It ran for 3 seasons. I cried a lot watching this because it's just so good and just so real. I don't want to spoil anything, but I highly recommend it. The autobiography of Jane Eyre is a vlog adaptation of Jane Eyre. It mentions LBD, but is not considered to be inverse as it is not from Pemb. One of my ultimate favorites has to be Classic Alice. It is a vlog about a college student named Alice that lets a book dictate her life and choices. There are several books adapted, and the series is so well done. I cried a lot watching this too. I cannot forget about Poe Party from Shipwreck Comedy. It is a hilarious and well-done murder mystery party that I highly recommend. A lot of the cast from LBD and other web series show up in this because a lot of the Shipwreck Comedy people are all friends. Mary Kay Wiles is actually heavily involved in Shipwreck Comedy too. And finally, the last on my list is the March Family Letters, an adaptation of Little Woman. In it, they moved the series to Canada, but it's about the March sisters. There is also queer representation in this as well. There are several more adaptations out there, and these are just some. You will notice that a lot of these series have the same actors in them. It kind of becomes a cool little reunion. To conclude, LBD helped usher in a new style of storytelling for the online generation. LBD premiered at the perfect time in 2012. Without LBD, a lot of these other series would never have happened. And there you have it, everyone. A retrospective of LBD. I hope this was worth your time watching. If you'd like to follow me online, you can on Instagram at We Read in the Clouds or on my personal account, Brianna Michelle Meyer. If you have any questions or want to talk about period dramas, my messages are open. Thank you all for coming out, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the con.